Welcome to the Go Get Great podcast, the perfect spot for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm Brittany, your host, an online marketing strategist and mom of 5. Here you'll discover how to start or scale your small business with practical marketing and business strategies that even the busiest entrepreneurs can implement. But we don't just stop at business insight, because we know that what you do when you're not wearing your entrepreneur hat is just as important to the success of your business. As a fellow mom, I understand the importance of having a space for real talk where we share the relatable, messy moments of balancing motherhood and a business. So let's dive in and start your journey from good to great. Welcome back to another episode of the Go Get Great podcast. I have a couple guests today, so apologies if you hear baby noises. But I'm also joined by Amy, owner of the Business Management Co. And I'm really excited about today's topic because I feel like systems really don't get the spotlight that they deserve. So Amy is a systems specialist. She's here to chat with us today about what systems you should have for your business, how to know when you need them if you don't have them, or when they need upgrading, so that we can all scale to hopefully 6 figures, which is what she specializes in helping her clients with. So good morning and welcome, Amy. How are you?
Hi, thanks, Brittany. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing great. And it's nice to be able to chat. I know you've been on my podcast before, and I know
Yeah.
you helped with my own business. So it's nice to actually be on and chat further. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. I am so excited to have you. But for those who don't know you, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Amy Sussex, and I'm the owner of the Business Management Co. And we help businesses behind the scenes getting their business organized, helping with the operations, their systems, and also helping with managing their teams. Because a lot of times what happens is people start a business, they have all the excitement, all the ideas, it's really working. And then what happens from there is they don't know how to actually organize their business, and everything's in like 1,000 different places, or it's all stored in their head.
In their head.
And
Yeah.
then from there, the other piece is like once it's organized, as people are growing a team, they don't actually know how to manage or lead their team. And so that's also the piece that we come in and we help with, like, okay, let's have those team meetings, have those frequent conversations, because people don't even think about that because they're like getting the product out there and getting the service out there and not really thinking about how everyone can work together as a cohesive team to continue to like grow and scale the business too.
For sure. And I feel like a lot of people listen to that and they're like, oh, well, I don't really have a very big team. I don't need to worry about that. But even as a solopreneur, systems can make or break a business, because there are what help you go on vacation if you're taking time
Yes.
away, take mat leave, and just like in general, have peace of mind that you're not forgetting things. And it took me probably a couple of years of being in business to realize that. I'm like, no, I've got a really good memory. It's fine. And it was for a while. But the longer you have your business, the bigger it gets, the more complex it is, the more there is to remember. And that's when things start slipping through the cracks.
Absolutely. And even as moms,
Yep.
you're trying to remember it all. You've got everything stuffed in your head between what's happening with family, what's happening with, maybe you and your spouse going on a date night or something. And then in addition, you've got all the other things that happen in business. And especially if you're a service-based business and you work with clients one-on-one or like in a group setting, you're retaining all of that information as well too. And eventually you get to capacity where you're like, oh crap, you start to blend things together. So if you don't actually have things written down in a spot, organized, it can kind of get a little wild. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, for sure. There's like a huge invisible mental load for parenthood. And I think people are starting to talk about that a little bit more. But what they're not talking about is the invisible mental load of running a business. Because as
Yes.
solopreneurs, like our brains are going 24/7, even when we're not working, or at least mine is. I don't know whether other people can shut it off when they close their computer, but I can't.
No, and it's funny enough we were just talking that like we can't, because even I'm going away on vacation and I'm like, I'm bringing my computer. But the
Mhm.
also way I'm looking at it is like that's a choice.
Mhm.
I'm excited to like, yes, most people are like, oh, you shouldn't be working on vacation. But I get to choose this. I actually get to choose when I want to open my laptop. I get to choose when I want to
Mhm.
work. Where when I was in corporate before, I would have had to ask for time off. I would have
Yep.
been stressed about having to go back to work because what did I miss? What's happening? For
Mhm.
this, I'm like, hey, cool, I'm gone away. I still get to work a little bit. But you know what's also more important is I get to in the morning bring my kids to school. I get
Mhm.
to pick my kids up from school. We have a
Mhm.
child home sick. I get to actually hang out with them and not have to go ask to leave work and make up the time. So there's all these other time
Mhm.
freedoms in a sense. It's not really freedom. It's you have a choice
Mhm.
that really happens when you are like an entrepreneur. And especially as a solo entrepreneur, yes, I get it because we're wearing all the hats, and they can feel
Mhm.
overwhelming because you don't know, I need to think of marketing, I need to think of sales, I need to think of customer service, I need to think of the admin side of things.
Mhm.
And so really, I feel like if you have like a system, whether using ClickUp or Trello or Asana or like whatever type of project management tool that you like to use, really having folders set up in those departments, because then it helps you compartmentalize like, okay, admin, what are all the tasks that need to get done? Client service, what's all the things that need to get done? Because then
Mhm.
again, you're not having to swirl that in your head of like all the processes you have to do. You actually have it in a safe place that you know it's there and you can continue to like rinse and repeat with the work that you do.
Absolutely. And it makes it so much easier too when you are ready to have a team, whether you're hiring like someone to actually work with you or whether you're just outsourcing to independent contractors because you still have to onboard them. They still need to understand who you are, what you do, how you do it. Otherwise, the quality of work you're getting back from them isn't going to be worth what you're paying for.
100%. And here's the other piece I've even realized. So I'm like, I need myself in my own business. So just so you guys know, like I help businesses with that, but like I also have to catch myself in like when I'm doing my own business too, because I've brought on
Mhm.
other team members, contractors to help my business, which has been amazing. But I'm like, again, I had stuff stored in my head. I didn't have like processes in place. So like I'm now working backwards, doing what I help people with, getting all that set up because my
Mhm.
business grew really quickly, which was like amazing. But
Mhm.
I should have expected it, but also didn't expect it to grow so fast in the same sense too. So I think
Mhm.
I'm now playing catch up in my own business. So I just want you to know,
Mhm.
anyone that's listening, if you are a solo entrepreneur and you're looking to grow your team, start to do those things in place. And if you also are somebody who has a small team and you're starting to grow more, like write those things down as you're doing them, because I'm in the thick of it right now of like, okay, what's the process for this? Where does this connect? So and it's
Mhm.
also taking that time, because I also think what happened too is like I wasn't actually setting the time aside
Mm.
to really do that in my own business. I'm always setting the time aside for clients. I'm really helping support clients, but we always, as you know, put our business last.
Yep.
It's the last thing. It's like family, client work, and oh, wait a minute, my own business, right?
Yep.
So I've really had to catch myself and schedule in time. I'm like, no, I want to figure this piece out of my business. I'm going to
Mhm.
put a time and place, because by me dedicating this time and putting that structure in, it's only going to help it to get better. It's only going to help now when I'm onboarding other people, and I'm not going to have to like be fixing it and like scrambling. And then again, people
Mhm.
feel like, oh, she hired you. Like, what does she hire me for? Because I'm not actually doing anything right now. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So for I think most of the people listening are probably solopreneurs or like very small teams. So I'm going to make the assumption that they may have some systems in place, but they also may not. So can you talk us through kind of the process of how you decide what systems work well to get started, either from the very beginning or maybe to transition from a system that's not working for you right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I typically, I love ClickUp. I know it can be a bit of a learning curve for people, but I think it also depends on your goals. So
Mm.
if you are planning on, continue to be a solo entrepreneur or having like a smaller team, then yes, maybe something like Asana makes more sense. However, I find with ClickUp, because you can have folders, you can communicate between the team and stuff like that. So really it's with the end goal in mind. I
Mm.
think that's
Mhm.
really factoring in like your systems and stuff like that,
Mhm.
because then what I've had clients do is they've built out a system and then they've maxed what they can do. And that now they're having to
Mm.
like add something else and they want it to zap and it gets super complicated. So I think
Mhm.
really starting with what system makes the most sense for like where you're wanting to go. And the other piece too is if something isn't working, listening to that. So I'm going to give an example with my website. So I have my website on one platform. It's been sitting with me for like the past year and a half. I'm like, I want like I can do the updates on it, but I'm like, I want to be hiring out people to do the updates. And the platform that I use, not a lot of people actually know how to do it because it's a newer platform. I'm like,
Mhm.
I actually am going to switch to Squarespace, because then that way I don't want to be hands on in my business all the time. And this is a platform that I know many people use.
Mhm.
So if I want to hire that part out, I can actually hire that part out. Plus, I know how to use Squarespace too if I ever wanted to go in and do my own edits. So I think it's also choosing platforms that you know that you're not gonna have to be spending 1,000 hours on, like, YouTube, Googling, or on chat all the time, like, how do you
Mhm.
do this? So you're gonna want something that's more, like, user friendly, or that you know other people are using that you can ask questions in forums and stuff like that, right? So I think that, and really listening to your gut, because when your systems aren't in place and you're not feeling good about it behind the scenes, it's really hard to grow and scale, and it's really hard to put yourself out there because it's hard to market because you're like, oh, if I have this influx of people come in and my systems are in place, like then what happens? And it all breaks. And that's actually happening with one of my clients right now that she's hired me because she has this big, beautiful vision to have, these group programs and all these people coming in. But she's like, when the people come, I don't have anything in place to make sure that they're having a really good client experience. So it's really like mapping out the client journey as well that we do too. So the other piece is everything can be customizable. Right. And so I'm just thinking too, like, yes, I talk about ClickUp and I love ClickUp and I love like the capabilities in it and the way to communicate. And ClickUp is almost actually replacing Slack now because they have channels in there. You can leave voice notes and stuff like that in there as well too. But there's another client that I have who uses Zoho and she uses it for her CRM and everything. And so for her, it doesn't really make sense because she has a team of 20 people. There's projects. So it makes more sense for us to be like integrating that. So I also think it's like maybe look at the platform that you're using. Is there extensions to that platform that would make sense to add on as well? So then that way it's not a huge learning curve for you and your team too.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And I like that you gave some examples of different platforms that people can use. I've heard of one other one too. I think it's called Airtable. Do you have any experience with that?
Yes. So I, funny enough, use Airtable with like my podcast as well.
Yep.
That's, to be honest, that's the only experience I have. I'm a very visual person. So I find visual and organizing. So if I can't put things in like folders and stuff like that. So to be honest, I find it a bit more confusing to use, but I know other people like love it and swear by it. But I like being able to organize by lists and I like being able to like view a calendar and I like being able to like add in a document if I need to and actually look like a document where like I can do those things in ClickUp. I can't do those things in Airtable, or at least maybe you can. I just
Good
don't
to
know how to
know.
do them. So yeah.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like that's one of the reasons why I like Asana, because I can color code things. I can put them in columns more so than folders, but like I can see it in list format. I can see it in calendar format. So like depending on the project that I'm working on, I need to look at information in different ways.
Yes.
And I find that, I'm pen and paper can't do that with. So that was one of the reasons why I eventually transitioned into systems, because I was just struggling and like rewriting things too many times in different ways because I needed the information to look different depending on the project. So that was one of like the signs for me that I was ready for systems.
Yes.
But I'm sure there are others too. So you mentioned one you want to outsource and you can't because people don't know. Are there any other kind of symptoms or like things that people can look at and be like, oh, you know what, I'm experiencing that. Maybe it is time for me to kind of go down this road.
Well, even like just what you were saying with like pen and paper. Like, yes, we have stuff in our head, but yes, you are writing stuff on pen and paper. Like, it's creating more time and effort now because you're having to translate whatever you have written down into like a system as well. So and it's hard to communicate because like your team member can't come and yes, I do have pen and paper myself for a quick little jot note, but for like things like they can't come now and see like what's written on your desk, right? So I think really making sure you have it in like a spot like that. And then the other piece too is you want to have visibility, like how you're saying you like to look at different lists or calendar. So some people communicate with their team by email, by Google Drive, which yes, that's great. And I know that that's like one way to start. But here's the thing why I think it's really good to have a project management tool is because it gives you visibility on your business and on your team. If you aren't using something like Asana, ClickUp, Trello, whatever, you can't see the overarching things that are happening in your business and who's doing what on your team. And then you're like, okay, maybe I can start to delegate this. Or you know what? I see that there's a gap coming up that I want to put in a sale here. I want to do this. You can actually make strategic decisions in your business because you have visibility on like what's actually happening.
No, yeah, and that's true. And that's huge too. Even that's why I like the calendar view for social media. Be like, oh, okay, I don't have post plan for like these 3 days, or oh, I really wanted to do this like pop-up special, but oh, I'm also prepping for like a launch right now and I can't fit in both. So like better not do that. Whereas when I'm just jotting things down on paper, you're right. I tend to overestimate what I can accomplish in any given period of time.
Definitely. And then I think too, it helps with like having things in a system. So if you do decide to start to hire somebody or to hire a piece of it out, you've kind of already got it there. So then they have the history of it. They're like, oh, okay, I can see, for the past 3 months, this is how she used to post on social media, or this is the frequency of her podcast, or these are the number of clients that she has, or this is the when she does this specific offer. So like
Mhm,
they can start to piece parts of your business together as well too. So again, depending on who you're hiring out for, they can
mhm,
see some of the history as well. And then that's the beauty of hiring people too. Like having contractors in your business is you're hiring them for their support. So they have ideas, they have expertise, and they're like, and they can see the gaps that are missing in your business too. Like even with you, Brittany, coming on, you're like, do you have SEO for this? Do you have this? I was like, I have none of those things set up, right? But like I'm so in the thick of like doing client work, but also trying to grow my own business that
mhm.
I'm missing those key pieces. But by you coming in, you're able to like help and navigate and see those things. And so that just makes a
Mhm.
difference too.
Mhm. I do have to say that you're probably one of our easier clients to onboard because you actually had the systems in place. So when I'm like, okay, cool, and I'm going to need passwords and like branding materials, and you're like, yep, here's the link, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Usually we're like running around being like, okay, we're putting the stuff in place for the clients, which is fine. We don't mind helping with that, but like, it delays the onboarding process for them, and they're like, how come we haven't started? Be like, well, because I don't have the stuff that I need to get going yet. So one foot in front of the other here.
Yes, definitely. Well, and I think even so for like my podcast, because there was so many moving pieces. So I know how I said like I didn't always have everything in place. I definitely did that because I was like, there's so as you know, with hosting a podcast, there's so many moving parts. I was like, I had my own checklist in place. I had like what
Mhm.
goes where, what goes in which platform. So that's
Mhm.
definitely one thing I think that I actually like had set up well. So I'm glad that that worked when I was onboarding you guys too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the other thing that kind of entrepreneurs don't realize when they're like, oh, I'm going to start this project, is they don't realize how complex projects are and how many moving pieces there are. So then they drop the ball in certain areas or don't realize. So like I know when I was like, oh, I'm going to create a course, it'll be great. I can make money anytime. People can just purchase the course whenever. But then I was like, cool, well, now I need a system to host the course. And that system needs to talk to like my email marketing system because that's how they're going to get the login details. And then, anytime you need to update or change any of it, you're like, okay, well, where's all this information live? How is it all connected? And that's really where systems kind of come into place. And I feel like there's different types of systems that can support businesses in different ways. So it's not just a case of using Airtable or Asana, which is like one type of system, but then there's things like Dubsado, which is CRMs, and then there's like email marketing systems, and you kind of need more than one to have a successful business.
Yes, absolutely. And you're right, because especially too, like there's different factors. So with like having a CRM like Dubsado or HoneyBook, it's allowing you to know, okay, I'm very much like I can't even say the word compartmentalized. No, that's not even how you say it.
Compartmentalize.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My words aren't working for me this morning, but
All
very
good.
much so. I'm like, I know when I go into Dubsado, this is where I'm doing like my invoicing, my contracts, the
Mhm.
proposals, the onboarding form, like all of it. And I know that that's all, and like any leads that are coming in, any like past
Mhm.
projects, like those are all living in there. And it's really helpful for me
Mhm.
to see that as well too.
Mhm. So tell me, what all systems do you use in your business as a system specialist?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dubsado is definitely one. I love that as like my CRM. I use, ClickUp. Obviously, I've been talking about ClickUp and I love ClickUp. I use Slack, but interesting enough, I'm actually looking to transition Slack into ClickUp because the fact that there's channels now that you can direct
Mhm.
message, you can actually do the voice notes and you can do video recording. So I use Loom right now to send like video recordings, but I'm
Yep.
actually looking at eliminating Loom because ClickUp has that capability as well too,
Oh, that's cool.
to record videos. So yeah, and then I use Fathom. Fathom has been like the biggest game changer for me because it goes in, it records all of my the calls, so whether it's a discovery connection call or whether it's like a client call, and then it spits out like what action items are needed, what the summary is. So one of the cool things I actually was able to do was because I record all of my discovery connection calls, I went in, I asked Fathom, what are the common pain points? What are the common like themes that are happening throughout each of these calls that I've had? And then I now have a database of like
Mhm.
client language, pain points, So when I'm doing my marketing and when I'm doing like my offers, I now have that to draw on. So like Fathom has been
That is
a
cool.
huge game changer. The other piece that I love with Fathom too is it now has like an Ask Fathom anything. So it has like it will scan all of my calls. So I can be like, what is my methodology? What are common terms I'm using? What are common things that I'm doing? So then that way again, it's pulling that and it's like helping me with that too. I use Riverside for my podcast. Um, I use AI, I use chat, I use Claude, but a lot of times it's more like, here's my thought, like help me like streamline my own thought with like a process kind of thing. So I do that. What other tools do I use? Those I think are like the really big ones that have like helped me with like organize and time management for sure.
Hmm. I love that. That makes a lot of sense. And we use similar tools. So I also use Dubsado. I use Asana instead of ClickUp. And then like I have my podcasting platforms and my course platform that hosts all of my course stuff. Um, no, another one that I use, and it's I guess not necessarily a system, but something that I like to mention for entrepreneurs because it really does help with time management is I use a website called Toggle
Yeah.
to help me track my time because that's not something that I can do in some of my other systems.
Can you not do that in Asana?
I probably could, I guess, if I set myself up as a project, but I like to track my own, like how much time I spend doing my own projects as well,
Okay.
outside of just my client stuff. But I should look into that. I'm not paying for Toggle, so it hasn't been a big deal. But
Okay.
that was going to kind of be my next question. So I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like, okay, well, learning one system is one thing, but now you just mentioned like 6 different things that you use that I
Yes.
would then need to go out and learn, but then also pay for. So, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs that are kind of up against that? Is it worth the time to learn how to do it and the investment to do it because there's a learning curve?
Definitely. And I also think it's like starting simple. I just didn't go and like add all these things because one was
Mhm.
overwhelming. And two, I was trying to be like mindful of budget because as you're growing, you want to be like mindful of that. But also, to be honest, too, I've done a lot of work on like mindset and money. So I also knew that like I wanted these things and systems in place and these tools because of where I'm going. And so obviously for me, it was like, I'm making these investments because these investments are in my business to help my business continue to grow. So really what I started off with was, what did I start off with? So I didn't okay, I'll use my podcast for example. I was doing everything on Zoom. I didn't get Riverside until last year because I was doing everything manually. Zoom was free. I have a Mac. So I was using iMovie and Zoom and I was doing that all on my own. And till eventually I was like, I no longer have the time and the capacity to be doing this. So I hired out an editor and I hired out you guys. And then I switched over to Riverside. And now I'm paying, I think it's $40 a month. But like I did free for 2 years in my podcast before I was like, okay, now I want to actually like pay and make the investments in it. I just got Fathom in November. So, because before I was doing everything through Zoom and I was doing everything like I was having Zoom send me like the recording and like the summary, but it was missing a lot of stuff. So then I was
Oh.
like, okay, you know what? Like no, Susie didn't say this comment. That was actually me that said this comment kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
now I pay $30 a month for Fathom, but it has saved me so much time because the other piece was I wasn't working smart enough because I was going back in and like reviewing stuff where now with Fathom, I can just like click on the conversation. It'll bring me right to that spot in the video to watch. So again, that's something that I just introduced. I've been using ClickUp for a while, but I also knew I needed to have it to organize my own business as well as organizing clients. And then I've always had like a website. I think, and you don't have to, but it was just a piece of, so I used to have a wellness business and that was like the first thing I ever invested in was like a wellness business because it actually made me feel like a legit business. You can be a legit business without having a website, but that was like a core piece for me. So it just, for me, I wanted a place for people to land if I'm going out, meeting people, connecting with people. Um, and then Dubsado, I have had for like a couple years now because again, I felt like things were getting lost and I wanted people to like sign contracts. But you know what? If you have the Google Workspace, people can sign, you would have to pay for it, but people can sign like contracts and do that as well too, right inside Google Workspace. So It's, I think, exploring a bit of like, what are you currently paying for that maybe already has the capability to do stuff? And then the other piece is, what are you paying for that like maybe might make sense down the road to switch? Because one of the reasons why I don't use Google and I use Dubsado is because I send my invoices through there. I want to send proposals through there. I don't want to be sending everything through like Canva and stuff like that. And I can set it up so like everything's automated. I didn't have it where it was automated before. So I was paying the lower package fee. So that's the other piece too, is like, look at the systems you're paying for. Is there maybe like a lower option that you can start paying with and then bump up from there? So even ClickUp, I started on the free version when I got ClickUp. And then eventually, as I've continued, I've started to add more in. So I think that's the other piece too, is like, you don't have to start with like, I'm paying for the top of everything. Like you can start with the free version and let it grow with you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's really good to know. And I feel like, or at least I hope most businesses start in that order, that they're not just like, okay, we're going to go out and buy like HubSpot.
It's all good.
Yeah, I hope entrepreneurs aren't going out and buying like HubSpot, which is supposedly an all-in-one CRM that I've heard some other business owners talk about. But I looked into it and it's like thousands and thousands of dollars a month. And I was like,
No, it's not that. And also I've seen people using like Go High Level, which again, like I know people love that. I think again, it goes back to like, what is your goal? And also knowing that it's okay to change platforms. Like, so I know in the past, like I've had clients that have got Kajabi because they love Kajabi and they want the all-in-one platform, but then they no longer are offering a course. So, or they're no longer having a community. So for them, doesn't make sense to keep paying, $200 a month or whatever it is. And they're wanting to switch to something like Squarespace where they're paying like $40 a month. So like also knowing too, like you can set something up, but you're allowed to change your mind. And it's okay to change your mind as you continue to grow and evolve with your business too. And I'm in a season of scaling and that's been like my vision for my business since I started it. But like that doesn't have to be yours. And that's okay too. So I think it's really knowing like what's in your heart and what you're wanting to do. And then you can choose systems based on that because you can get all these fancy bells and whistle systems. But like at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense for you and you're not going to have like a bigger team or whatever, like that's okay too. You need to work with like what makes the most sense for you and your vision.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I feel like I'm definitely in a season now where I'm reevaluating a lot of my expenses and my systems.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want my business to scale. I do. I just can't have it scale at an unsustainable pace right now, knowing that I have small children and more children on the way. And it almost feels like I'm failing in my business because I'm like, well, I don't need this anymore, even though, I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars paying for a system up to this point. Sometimes I've had experts come in and set things up for me. And I'm just like, I don't need this right now. I know I'll need it eventually, but it's like, how do you rationalize kind of maintaining all of those costs when, well, for me, my revenue is lower than it was when I set up all the systems. So it's like, wow, this hurts a lot more than it did, like last year.
Well, and you're right too. And you got to look at that, right? Look at what your revenue is, but also look at the season of life that you're in. So like a lot of these things. So my kids are 8 and then my youngest is gonna be turning 4 soon. So like, yes, I'm still in the thick of parenting, but I'm not in the thick of like newborn to 4 or 5 years old, right? I'm starting to get more of that like time freedom and that flexibility to be able to like use these systems and the things in my business. So I think it's like you bring up a really good point. It's like notice the season that you're in. And that's part of what we've talked about too, is like being an entrepreneur and having a business is you have that freedom, you have that flexibility to make those choices. And if, letting some systems go right now because it's not making sense, you're not utilizing them, you're paying for them, but it's not making sense to keep paying for them. Is there like a freer version that you could be using right now to help minimize the cost because this is the season that you're in? And knowing that, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you might not go back to that system, but like you have it from like a different perspective. And like maybe your business has evolved from then too. Like I know when I started this operations business 3 years ago, like I'm not doing a lot of the same offers that I was doing, before either. So like knowing that you're going to continue to evolve and your business will all evolve too. But yeah, I think you bring up like, I think it's so hard because we get so stuck in like seeing what everyone else is doing online and seeing like this is what we should be doing or this is how we should be growing our business. But like really it's embracing and having that gratitude for like that I get to choose what I want to do. I get to choose the clients I want to work with. I get to choose how I want my business to run. And growing a small family is like we love them, but it's exhausting, right? So like that's the piece. And it's like we're
Yep.
working in between nap times. We're working in the middle of the night when they're up. We're working in the morning, but it's also sustaining your energy too, because you also don't want to be burning out because you're trying to maintain this business that just isn't working for what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that that's it's a lot of the things that people don't talk about and they don't think about. They're like, oh, well, I needed this before, I'll need this in the future, but you don't necessarily need it now. And there's like a level of fluctuation that comes with growing a business.
Yes.
And people I think more people just kind of need to talk about that and have that be more common knowledge that, yeah, things change, people switch, new tech becomes available, and like all of these things, there's so many factors. So that's why one of the things that I've stopped doing is like buying lifetime memberships to things,
Yes.
unless it's like a super big savings. Like if I'll make that money back within like a year or a year and a half, then okay, sure. But I pay for most of my systems monthly. And I know that not everyone recommends that because it costs more money in the long run. But then it also gives me freedom and peace of mind to know that if things change in 6 months, 9 months, whatever,
Yep.
I'm not tied into this and I haven't spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And again, if it's something that you're using all the time and then you have the cash flow to be investing like for like a year, whatever, then that makes sense. But I think as you're growing your business and evolving your business, there's nothing wrong with month to month. And like I said before, like, so for example, even I used to use Planoly as like a scheduler in my business. I used it in my wellness business. And then when I switched to operations, I didn't have anything. And then 2 months ago, or actually 3 months ago, I started with Planoly. I used it for a month and I was like, I actually don't like this. Why am I paying for this? So like, again, you might go
Yeah.
back to a system you used to use and you're like, I don't want to do that. I just want to post like organically myself. Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I know. There's no like simple answer and business isn't easy. And I think that's
No,
the hard
yeah.
part. It's like the part that people need to realize. Like I did a post
Mhm.
on Threads the other day because I was like, I was so stressed out. I'm like, I want to talk to someone I'm trying to grow an agency. So I'm like, I want to talk to someone who's like grown an agency because right now I'm ready to burn down my business, but I think I just need to hire a mentor right now to like
Mm.
someone who's been where I want to go. And I think
Mhm.
that's the other piece too, is like you can like look at mentorship. You can look at like, I know we're both in Monarch, there's other
Mhm.
communities out there. And maybe you don't have the funds right now to join a community. Listen to people's podcasts. Like before I actually joined any communities, I listen to podcasts all the time because I would go for a walk and I'd be like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm stressed out. Who am I? What am I? Like all the crazy
Mhm.
thoughts in my head. So I would put on Chris and Lori Harder's podcast and I would listen to that and be like, okay, they are just normal people. They're multimillionaires, but they're just normal people that like just figured it out as they went too, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's the piece too, is like there is free stuff out there too to support you.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really great point as well. And I think too, if you get a new system and you want to DIY it, go ahead and try.
Yes.
And then, if you have the capacity to invest in help, then that's always a great way to go. But you can figure it out as you go. Like maybe just implement one or two things at a time and then kind of build the system up slowly. Like I've been using Dubsado for a few years and I've talked to Amy about having her do this for me because now I'm at the point where I just don't want to do it,
Yeah.
even though I know how, but I had to like go and learn slowly. So like the first thing I set up was just my calendar so that people could click on a link and book with me. And I didn't have to manually email back and forth about my availability. And then after that, I think I set up like my contracts and my proposals, but I didn't do it all at once. Like I did it over the span of probably 6 to 12 months, do it slowly. I'd watch a YouTube video of things that I didn't know how to
Yep.
do, or even the tutorials that come from the like Dubsado themselves or
Platform.
whatever.
Yep.
There are resources out there. And if you are on a budget, you can learn how to do it yourself. Just like don't go in and expect that you're going to purchase a new system and have it set up in 7 days because that's what leads to burnout. That's what causes problems.
Absolutely. And the other piece too is you can do trades. Like
Mm,
you'd never know. Like ask somebody, are they open to like a trade? So like when I first started my wellness business, like I mentioned, I wanted a website. I didn't have the
mhm,
funds for a website. I reached out to like this marketing company. I was like, can you build me a website? Can I pay you half and the other half I can massage you? Because I do
mm,
massage. And they're like,
mhm, mhm,
yeah, I'll take massages. So like think outside of the box too, right? Like I know, yes,
mhm.
you can invest and you can hire somebody and yes, you can learn on YouTube. But if you feel like you're getting stuck, like there's so many people like ask if they're willing to like do a trade of like, you teach me this and I'll do this for you if that's something that you're interested in doing too.
Yeah, that's definitely another great option for entrepreneurs that are getting started.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of a shift in topic, but something that I really wanted to mention today is the comparison game. And I know that's a little bit more mindset piece, but it actually really does factor into systems, because what people don't realize is that you are playing the comparison game with someone's business that you cannot see. You don't know how many people they have on staff, who their independent contractors are, and you don't know what systems they have in place behind the scenes that's giving them the bandwidth to do all of these things that you're seeing. And people ask me a lot, oh, how do you do everything that you do? You're like, okay, well, technically I am a solopreneur, but like I have had copywriters work with me from time to time. Grayson does all of my podcasts. I have systems set up in place so that when I sit down to work, I'm not spending 3 hours going, okay, what was I working on last week when I was here? I've got it all documented in Asana, in Dubsado. My invoices are all sent automatically for me now. My calendar is automatic. So when I sit down and work, I'm working on my client work or I'm working on my own marketing projects. And that's why I can be in more places than other people, because I have systems.
100%. And you bring up such a good point because again, we kind of get stuck in like that comparison. And I just had that with a client who's trying to build a course and she's like, this person's sending an email twice a week and they're posting 4 times a day on social media and they're
Oh my
going to all
gosh.
these events. And I was like, did you know that this person, one, has been in business for 10 years? Also, did you know that this person has 3 people on their team? I know that because I'm one of the people on their team. So I was like, so I was like, yes, they're doing this. And I'm like, they have like, this is all mapped out and planned like months in advance. So, and then they execute it to other people. So I'm like, you're comparing yourself with someone who has support and who has help, but who also has the funds to be paying somebody and like people to be doing these things too, and also has the funds for all these systems. I'm like, you're just getting started. So like recognize that like you're doing amazing for where you're at, but like you're not comparing apples to apples with this.
For sure. And I think that that's kind of like the other piece of systems that people don't always realize. Like you hear the expressions of systems set you free, but like until you actually put them in place for your business, you really don't have context to understand how that works. But I would spend so many hours going in and updating invoices, changing the numbers, changing the date, whatever, just to get paid like hours and hours every month. And that was finally why I was like, you know what? I'm going to pay $45 a month for Dubsado and I'm going to get back 3 to 4 hours a month of my own time. That makes sense. But until you kind of can step back and picture it from that perspective, okay, well, this is the financial investment in this, but what am I getting back? Not only was it no longer a case of Brittany having to remember that I got to invoice this client on the 3rd and this one on the 17th, and it did it for me. And then I got more time to then work on other projects. And yeah, you really don't understand it until you actually do it. And then you're like, oh my God, why didn't I do this sooner?
100%. And that's even like what I was saying with my podcast before is like, I was doing everything in Zoom. I was also sending out a form manually for people doing. So once I like added Riverside in and then added, like, obviously it was different when I added in team support too, but like even with switching to like Riverside, I was like, oh my God, like it does it automatically for me. I was like, this was like, I was saving hours of time. And then I even used Websado for people to book in their podcast. I was manually doing it with people and then I was manually sending them the form. So I was like, even with Websado, I was like, now they can book in their time. I have them fill the form. So I've got all that information there. I'm not sifting through emails. I'm not like going all this back and forth with everything. I was like, this saved me so much time and energy at the end of the day too.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want people to really be aware of that. It mostly because of the comparison game, but also because it is such a weight off your shoulders, especially when you are a solopreneur, to put some of these things in place. Now, one thing that I do want to mention too is it's great to have all these systems, but if every system works in isolation, then you still have a lot of manual stuff that you're doing. Yeah. So one of the things that really helped me was using Toggle, tracking my time. Be like, okay, I'm actually spending this many hours on this project. Well, I'd rather, not, and then I'll put a system in place. But then I would put systems in place and then realize that I needed that information in more than one location. And then you need to put additional systems in essence on top of that so that the systems talk to each other. So I don't know whether you use Zapier. I would
Yep,
assume
I
you
do
do.
use that, and I'm doing some of that more. So I've helped clients with that,
Yeah.
but I've been doing some of that more within my own business. But the one piece I want to share about that is automation is great until it doesn't work. Tech is it's all tech. Tech is tech in, tech is great until it doesn't work. So I know a lot of times, like I'm going to compare this to like marketing and money. So a lot of times in marketing, you're like, okay, what's your Q1 plan? Like, have that
Mhm.
plan organized. Money, they're like, okay, do your money dates and stuff like that. I say do your automation dates because I want you to be checking like at least every 3 months that everything is set up and working how it's supposed to work. Because
Mhm.
it's great until it doesn't work. And then people think that something's working. Because a lot of times people set it and forget it. And
Mhm.
that's not helpful because now you think that it's working and it's not working and you're losing clients and you're losing time and energy. And then it's
Mhm.
also how your business is being portrayed now out into the world. And like there's things that you possibly could be missing because you didn't take that 30 minutes every 3 months or every 2 months and went and checked to make sure that the system was actually working properly.
Mhm. Oh, and it for sure 100% happens. I've had that happen to me a few different times where I was like, okay, people fill out the lead capture form in Wix, and then Zapier sends the information to OmniSend, which triggers the email sequence for it, and they're getting what they want. And then all of a sudden, you get an email from someone going, "Oh, I downloaded this and it didn't work." And then you're like, "Oh, that's weird." And I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes it is user error,
Yes.
but sometimes it is systems too. And then you go back and check, and like in my case, it was between 4 and 6 weeks that they hadn't been triggering properly. So then I had to like manually go back in like hundreds of email addresses that have been added to my list that didn't get the freebies that they were supposed to get. And then I had to trigger the sequence. And then also because it's me, I also sent an apology email. I'll be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like I really didn't realize that this wasn't working. Here's the information you asked for, like, please forgive me kind of thing. And I was like, at least in that case, it was just a freebie, but also it's a bad experience. So now those people are less likely to take advantage of the CTA at the end of the email sequence, because they didn't get what they wanted 4 weeks ago when they wanted it.
True. But I think the fact that you sent an email like apologizing, I think that speaks volumes too, because again, you're humanizing like, hey, business isn't perfect. We make mistakes. Things don't always work, but you're like, hey, sorry about that. Like,
Mhm.
here's this. And I think that's something to be said too, because a lot of times people can kind of like hide in their cocoon or like, it didn't happen, right? But like just
Mhm.
calling it out. And I think like so many people are drawn to that authenticity of like, hey, you're a real person at the end of the day. And you're a real
Mhm.
person who actually wants to help me too.
That's true. And sometimes I wish more people did that. Be like, hey, I understand that it doesn't work. But like if I reach out to you and tell you something's broken, it's not because I'm trying to be mean. It's because I genuinely wanted something and then didn't get access to what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And not only do I want to be nice and give you a heads up so you can fix it before this happens to someone else, but like I would still like that thing, please.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So, I mean, we've talked quite a lot about, how to know when you need systems, what systems you need, kind of how to get started with them, like the cost trade-off. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you think is really important for people to know? Because I'm not the systems expert.
I think at the end of the day, it's like everything is like figureoutable and fixable. So like just give it a try.
Mhm.
And if you're something that you're like feeling called to try, go ahead, try it. And if you don't like it, that's okay. You're allowed to change. But I think
Mhm.
at the end of the day, yeah, everything's figure outable with Marie Folio kind of thing, right? And like
Yes.
things may break, but like there's always a solution to fix things. So I
Mhm.
know a lot of times people get really intimidated by like tech and systems and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But just know we're all figuring this out like as best you are. We're just a couple more
Mhm.
steps ahead of you, kind of thing, right? So yeah.
Mhm. For sure. So I do have one kind of wrap up question that just popped into my head. So
Yeah.
the systems that we've been talking about today, obviously I am nowhere near six figures in my business, but I do know that you work with businesses that are.
Yeah.
Are they the same systems that they use to scale to six figures? Or is there a kind of a certain point where you need to reevaluate and switch from like solopreneur systems to big team, big goal systems?
So really good question. And so obviously I have a bit of the inside scoop. So I just want all the listeners to know that no matter if you're just starting, you're a couple years in, you're like 5 years in, just because someone's making six figures doesn't mean their business is all figured out as well too. So a lot
Also
of
true.
times I'm coming in because they are capped. They are at capacity and they have no visibility on their team. So they don't actually have a project management tool in place, or maybe they don't like, so I'll give you a couple examples. Like one client I had, they were communicating back and forth through text message with their team. I was like, no, 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 no. We're doing so we've implemented Slack in their team. They make multiple six figures.
Wow.
Yes. Another client had no project management. So they had no visibility on their team. So everyone had stuff in their email. They had stuff in their Google Drive. They were sending links and then they were like recreating documents. There was like 5 different versions of this document that lived. They also make 7 figures. So just so you know, like everyone's figuring it out as they go, which is all part of being in business. But just know, like there might be a business that you really look up to. They might not have their shit figured out. I don't know if it's fair or not, but like just say that you don't always have it figured out either too, right? They're figuring it out as they go. So I know you talk about like that whole comparison thing too, right? So yeah. So to answer the question of like at least starting with something, I think is key because then as you continue to grow, because what happened is these people didn't start with anything and it wasn't working. So they were still keeping stuff in their head, keeping stuff in their email. So at least if you start really honestly having some type of project management tool in place really helps as you continue to grow and scale.
Okay, awesome. I love that. And it's nice to hear that the businesses making the kind of money I would like to make are probably in similar, different, but similar situations of the things that I am learning and trying to figure out and implement and test and all of that. So yeah, that is really nice to know. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Go Get Great podcast today. I feel like I learned so much and I hope that the listeners did as well. I know you shared some incredibly valuable information. And as we were talking before we hit record, it's not necessarily about learning things. It's about taking action. So if you are wanting to do it yourself or you're looking for some help, how can they get a hold of you, Amy? Because you're going to know way better than me.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm on Instagram at amy.sussex, or you can head to my website, The Business Management Co. I also have a podcast as well too that Brittany was on. So it's called Beyond Your podcast that you're more than welcome to listen to. But yeah, the best way to reach me would be through Instagram at amy.sussex.
Okay, perfect. And I will link that all in the show notes for you as well. All right. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week on the Go Get Great podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Go Get Great. I hope that you found some inspiration and practical tips to help you take your life and business from good to great. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to leave a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We've got so much more valuable content and amazing guests coming your way. And don't forget to follow us on social media for marketing tips and a whole lot of relatable mom content. You can find us on Instagram at Brittany Miller Socials and at Brittany N Miller _. And if you're ready to elevate your marketing game, I would love to work with you. Whether you need help with social media strategy, email marketing, or growing a podcast of your own, Brittany Miller Socials is here to support you every step of the way. Visit my website at www.brittnymillersocials.ca to learn more about how we can work together. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and go get great.